Naked and Afraid, Last One Standing, Season 2, Episode 10 review. Well, good people, I will say that this finale was much better than the one in Season 1 of Last One Standing, but I wasn't very satisfied with the outcome. And if I had to rate the finale episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 6. What truly killed this episode for me was the runtime. The finale episode was 2.5 hours long, and in my opinion, this finale could have been condensed into an hour and a half, 2 hours max. The extra time, particularly near the end of the episode, was uncalled for and a complete waste if you ask me. There also seemed to be inconsistencies with the advantages given to survivalists who finished first place in their respective challenges. In the Primitive Fire challenge for this episode, there was no advantage given to the fastest person to finish, while a game-changing advantage was given to the person who finished the Boomstick challenge first. But aside from that, while I wasn't too thrilled with who won the competition, I will concede that Dan won the season fair and square, and that this season finale seems somewhat more competitive and more fair than the first one. So that's why I rated this episode much lower than the other episodes for the season. But for the remainder of this review, I will go over my top 5 moments for the episode, as well as my thoughts on how Last One Standing should move going forward. Top moment number 5, the Primitive Fire Challenge. This elimination challenge is a triple elimination challenge, and as I pointed out in my episode 9 review, Kai and Dan were the strongest primitive fire makers that were left in the competition. I also assumed that Jeff and Gary would have worked on their fire making skills since season 1, and come into this season ready to conquer the challenge, but I was wrong. So we get to the Primitive Fire Challenge, and it went as expected. I had a feeling that Jeff's luck would run out in this episode, but it doesn't take away from all that he accomplished in the season. But Kai finished first and Dan finished second. The big surprise for this challenge was seeing Fernando and not Patrick secure the third and final spot for the finale. Call it lucky or call it skills, but Fernando has surprised me at every turn in the competition, and him earning the final spot in the finale is what makes a show like this great. While it was disappointing to see Jeff and Gary get eliminated, it also sucked that the show waited until the near end of the competition to spring this challenge on Jeff and Gary. The conspiracy theorist in me believes that production knows which challenges the survivalists have the best and worst chances of winning, and they strategically assign those challenges in the episodes by order of who they want to have the best chance of reaching the finale. Top moment number 4, Fernando's pivotal trade. Prior to the start of the Primitive Fire Challenge, Fernando was at a disadvantage on how to prep for the challenge, but he knew that he needed access to better materials for the bow drill. Fernando then goes to Dan and Patrick and trades his salt for a piece of paracord. At the time, I thought this trade was completely insane because I didn't give Fernando any shot at being in the final 3, and giving Dan access to salt would have been a huge boost to him should he make it in the final 3. But the gamble paid off, and it helped Fernando secure his spot in the final 3. Top moment number 3, Kai goes full competitor mode. I was somewhat surprised to see Kai turning cold to Fernando and Jeff when it came to giving tips on how to get the best primitive fire. And it's not Kai's responsibility to help Jeff and Fernando with anything, but in episode 9, Jeff spent most of his energy feeding Kai and Fernando. One could argue that if Jeff didn't share his fish and Impala with Kai and Fernando, then they might not have had the energy to go into the Primitive Fire Challenge. So at the very least, Kai could have given Jeff some hints or advice, but she didn't, and it makes me wish that Jeff didn't share his resources with everybody in episode 9. Later on, Kai gets stung by a scorpion, and luckily the sting didn't take her out of the competition. But I believe that the scorpion sting may have impacted her ability to perform at her best towards the end of the challenge. Top moment number 2, the Boomstick Noose Hook Challenge. In this challenge, Kai, Dan, and Fernando have to construct a primitive boomstick with the noose hook and use it to retrieve a satchel which is 20 feet in the air. The winner of this challenge will get an unknown competitive advantage in the final showdown. What stuck out to me the most in this challenge was when Kai and Fernando were busy trying to be the fastest to construct their boomsticks, Dan stood back, watched Kai and Fernando, and learned from their mistakes before taking his time to construct his own boomstick. This strategy allowed Dan to retrieve his satchel first, while exerting less energy. Meanwhile, Kai and Fernando nearly burned themselves out trying to retrieve their satchels. The importance in the order of which the survivalists finished the challenge would be that the first person to finish would be allowed to camp at the campsite nearest to the final challenge. The person who comes in second has to camp at least a quarter of a mile away from the final challenge, and the person that came in third has to camp a half a mile from the challenge. So with Dan coming in first, the finale was essentially his to lose. And top moment number 1, the final showdown. In this final challenge, the survivalists had to transport hot coals to their final challenge location, start a fire, and shoot a flaming arrow at a target located on the lake. The first survivalist to hit their target and cause it to light on fire wins. Because Dan has the advantage from the previous challenge, he arrived at the location first, but he had issues getting the fire started. Kai and Fernando arrived quickly thereafter, but everyone was having issues hitting their targets. Kai was the first one to actually hit her target, but the fire went out before she could win. Dan then hits his target, causes it to light on fire, and he becomes the last one standing. I think it's important to note that Dan would have likely lost the challenge if he didn't have the advanced head start. I believe that if Dan, Kai, and Fernando had to start on an equal playing field, then Kai or Fernando would have likely won. But Dan is the winner, and I extend my congratulations to him. So with Season 2 of Last One Standing officially coming to a close, I want to share my final thoughts on the season, as well as how the show should move going forward. I would like to first give kudos to the showrunners for this season. In Season 1 of Last One Standing, it seemed like the show tried its best to merge the concept of survival with Naked and Afraid to create a brand new competition-based show. But the concept of Season 1 failed, mainly because most of the participants essentially rebelled against the notion that they needed to compete against each other. It was Jeff, and to a lesser extent Gary, who were the only participants who attempted to honor the concept of the show, and the end product became very hard to watch. The show also had issues with some of their challenges, like the rafting and primitive fire challenge, which had survivalists really risking their lives and well-beings just to be the winner. For me, what worked in Season 2 was how the show was able to establish itself as a competition very early on with a double elimination in Episode 1. I liked that the fate of a survivalist wasn't necessarily tied to their partner like it was in Season 1. To me, that was a completely insane concept, because if one survivalist wants to quit, their partner shouldn't be punished for it. With this season, I like that the show provided less free food in the cash challenges. The lack of free food also made more of the survivalists work for their meals. And while none of the survivalists were able to catch a big game animal in Season 1, we have 4 that caught big game animals in this season. I also like the idea of rewarding survivalists based on how they finish in their respective challenges. Making the survivalists forfeit all their survival items and allow the cast members who finish strong to get their pick of the litter was a huge improvement from Season 1. Now, there were also some things that I did not like about Season 2. In my opinion, the decision to allow stealing was not a good one, and this was because there was only one survivalist who really took advantage of the rule, and the concept of stealing would go against most of the other survivalists' moral codes. I wasn't a huge fan of the shock value challenges, like the Mopani seed challenge, where survivalists had to chew on dung-coated seeds in order to make a bird trap. Those type of challenges remind me of the show Fear Factor, and they really didn't add much to the show except some gross out moments. I also felt that there were some inconsistencies with the rules and the competitive advantages. For example, the show had a hard line when it came to sharing between the survivalists, but some survivalists still tried to share until the show caved in and made sharing okay again. And in my opinion, the problem with sharing is that it's done so without any regulations by production, which means that if Jeff in Episode 9 wanted to only share his fish and Impala with Gary and nobody else, then it would have drastically impacted the other survivalists in the competition going forward. And there would be nothing to stop it. But another example is Episode 10's Primitive Fire Challenge. With Kai finishing the challenge first, she should have been given a competitive advantage in the form of getting her pick for the remaining survival items that were left by the eliminated cast members, or by getting a head start in the Boomstick Challenge. But she didn't, and that kinda sucks. Now, I'm almost certain that there will be a Season 3 of Naked and Afraid Last One Standing, and if there is, I would like for Season 3 to continue with the formula for Season 2, but I would like the show to cast survivalists that have similar level of survival skills. For example, if most of the challenges in the show will focus on bushcrafting, then only cast survivalists with strong bushcrafting skills. If most of the challenges focus on a survivalist's ability to hunt, fish, and process animals, then only cast survivalists with strong hunting and processing skills. That way, Whenever a survivalist gets eliminated from a challenge, it'll be because they were not the best of the best, and not because the challenge was catered to somebody with a significantly higher skill level. When it comes to casting for Season 3, I would like to see EJ, Fernando, Kai, Gabby, Patrick, Matt, and Steven, and 7 other last one standing rookies for next season, but I would like to see the challenges be completely different from Season 1 and Season 2. I think that one potentially new concept for last one standing could be to make it a teamed-based competition. Entire teams of 5 or 6 would be in the challenges, and the losing team would have to battle it out in an elimination challenge. The team that makes it to the finale of the show gets the prize money. Another concept that could be introduced in Last One Standing would be for survivalists to be able to earn lifelines in the challenge. The lifeline could be in the form of a naked and afraid veteran that comes in to help out with a particular challenge. This will be a way to bring Last One Standing favorites like Jeff and Gary to help a team with their knowledge and survival skills. But this marks the end of the review. I would like to thank each and every one of you who checked out my reviews, who subscribed to the channel, and who left comments about each episode. I look forward to checking out the new seasons of Naked and Afraid and Last One Standing, and I hope that you all have a good day. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.